Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to some of you, and peace out to the rest of you. You already know who it is and who it ain't. It ain't your boy and it is your man, the blackest hearted, blackest minded, blackest man on social media, signing black in and shining again, asking you to hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. And let me say this right quick about this message. First, to Bernard Raleigh and to Nak Measy, I've not forgotten the invitations. As a matter of fact, Bernard, I just saw the notification of your response, so I'm going to try to check my email when I get back from work. Check my email from you when I get back from work. Right now it's Ramadan. Plus, I've been vaccinated. And so I'm feeling very exhausted and tired, but I thought I'd still go ahead and try to record this, even though today, oddly enough, I have to work. Not for long, but I do have to work. I don't know why. Let me get straight to this one though. When you watch Kevin Samuel's video entitled "Black Women Are Still Out of Order," says Iyanla Vanzant, you see a therapist try to smooth it over and step around what Mr. Samuel says that sisters must do to get black male protection. And that is really nothing more than, smile if we ask you to, which is not something most of us ask, and act like we're the same demographic. She wanted to bring it back to the black woman's trauma, and frankly, I agree that black women are traumatized. Very much so. See, in the West and in the East alike, in the Caribbean, North America, South America, the continent, and even in Melanesia, where they've been for tens of thousands of years, black women are traumatized AF. So the question stands, and that is Kevin Samuel's good question: why did prior generations deal with it better with even more trauma? And even BGS, shout out to him, has pointed out that sisters have been hard on brothers even a long time ago, going back generations. What's changed is that now this nasty attitude is more discussed, and by sisters themselves, it's even celebrated. In that same video, you will see the last sister with her hair covered, the 24-year-old. She confessed that sisters can't see a reason to be with black men because they're so independent, and they can't see why they would act like they're the same people as us. When Mr. Samuel was told, the viewer, to record and make that confession of hers viral, she interjected and said something: build businesses with us. To my audience members listening now, please allow me, Black Mind, to interpret the matriarch negress babble in that. Build businesses for us. She wants to see black men just somehow do as well as the mayonnaise mafia, despite us being dunked and surrounded in a mayonnaise environment that is designed to hold us back. And even despite us back on the continent being sanctioned anytime any of us decide to no longer be held back. Then when many of us bros actually do better than we statistically should, they still have issues. I know firsthand. My American ex didn't become obedient when I finally made money. She complained because I had to leave Atlanta to make it, and I had to live away. She was still salty and hard-headed, not hateful, but hard-headed. And I was lucky because most ADO sisters, even in the Muslim community, had even worse attitudes than she did. If you go to Masjid al-Mu'minun in Atlanta down the street from the baseball stadium on Friday afternoons, the deputy that guides the parking has sisters arguing with him or disrespecting him, not brothers. I know because I've helped him do that a few times. He also went through a nasty divorce too, and she wanted everything she could get and had him not allowed in his own house, for which he still had to pay not only the mortgage or the rent, but the lights, cable, and whatever else he had normally kept on. But he had to stay away from the house. He couldn't go to retrieve his belongings, even escorted by another officer. Even in the Muslim community back then in the early 2000s, this was going on. This 24-year-old on Kevin Samuel's live stream at the end is too young to really know about trauma like that unless she experienced some abuse or molestation. And I hope she did not. But as Edward Anderson said, shout out to him too, today's black woman defines trauma as the experience of not getting the guy that not only she wants, but every other black female in her peer group wants, or being pumped and dumped. That's it. Seeing white chicks on TV having a lifestyle that real life 3D white people today not on TV don't have and are losing is enough to traumatize the American or the Canadian or the British or the Western European sister. Even the Bahamian and Jamaican sister, from what gentlemen are telling me now. At this point, even the Sudanese. The mayonnaise folks on TV don't have to suffer terrible jobs. They're not in debt and they're not burdened with keeping up with the Joneses. And so they don't have to stunt at the club every Saturday night either. Yeah, I get that. But in real life, they have it better than us on average. That is true. But they also are going backwards from where they were. So I'm simply saying that they're in a position that many of us would not want to be. Seeing their fantasies on a two-dimensional screen without living them is trauma to the sister. Remember when I told you all about my current wife's colleague from Philadelphia? She's a good friend of my wife, so I respect her and I want good for her, but I see through some of the mess. See, she got her vaccine and she almost fainted later on and my wife caught her. I kid you not. This strong black woman, tired of hearing men complain about doing things they have to do because I was sick of driving for about several hours. I don't know how long. Darn near fainted from fear after she got the injection and it was over and the Band-Aid was already on her arm. Think about it. She didn't faint when they gave an injection. She stood up and then almost fainted and my wife caught her. This is the same strong, independent black woman that told Sandra, y'all remember her, told Sandra to my face when Sandra asked that yes, black mind is in fact too light-skinned for black women. That's not what we want. She disappointed Sandra because Sandra was trying to attempt to convince me that I was wrong for not approaching sisters anymore and considering Southeast Asian women at the time. Well, this same strong black Muslim woman who says kutbar instead of khutbah and astaghfirullah instead of astaghfirullah was married to a Caucasian Muslim brother from Eastern Europe and they didn't stay together. The same way that I'm not supposed to know that Sandra herself got with a dude that she didn't know had any black blood. I'm not supposed to know that this Muslima from Philly had a Caucasian Muslim brother from Eastern Europe. I'm not supposed to know that she had a husband like that, but I do know. Two people told me. And I'm not going to put it on him that they split up. I don't have to meet the man. As I've already said, men don't marry to divorce, even when we marry prepared for divorce. We don't drive women away. And I'm not even going to put this on a white man and say they do just because they're white. And I wouldn't say that about the white non-Muslim men either. Even the white non-Muslim Western European man that gets on my father-mucking last nerve, who I think deserves to be put in slavery, does not do that. They don't marry to divorce. Men don't have an interest in driving women away. We never did. So this 24-year-old on his live stream just sat up and said for us to build businesses with them after she said there was no reason to act like we're even the same demographic. That demands, going into business to build it with someone, demands a level of trust and respect they simply don't have in us no matter how competent we are. She meant build for her. And this shows exactly why we men must stop making sex and everything else easy for them, or we must treat them like they're less than equal. We got those two options. And I'm not really sure we should choose between them, but we should insist on both. Because she's saying that like she has a right to take from you and give you nothing back. Now, it doesn't sound like that grammatically in English, literally, but you see, we already know that in general, they tend to sit back at the finish line waiting to screw the winner. The Western woman's worse about that. She may have used the preposition with, but even if she is unaware herself, she meant for, and she didn't mean as part of an exchange either. She meant a one-way transaction. We Western black men must refuse this every time and always be on the lookout for them trying to sneak it in too. And really, this is why we got to be paranoid and just leave them. Stop trying to build stuff with them. They need to be attractive, young, fit, and then approach you when you are young and still trying to get your stuff together in order to win you. Even if you will still be on guard with other women, but you don't demand that from them, you must demand that from the sister in the West in order to give her the same chance. Simply because they will celebrate the attitude of demanding from you and refusing to give you anything. I won't even smile at you, ninja, but you better protect me and lay down your life. Understand that, frankly, the difference between Western black men and Western black women may or may not be the difference between our trauma levels, but independently of that, regardless of that, we men cannot bleed on the women because another man cut us, whereas they can come to us and bleed all over us and even blame us for the cut itself. Matter of fact, the ones who don't bleed on us and blame us get shamed for it by the loud mouths who do. The happier a black woman will make her man, the more castigated she is by other black women. This 24-year-old wasn't vying for the repair of black gender relationships. She was vying for the approval of other sisters for talking down to and correcting Kevin Samuels. My son is close in age to her, and this is what is out there waiting for him if he decides to keep it black in the West. Fortunately, he knows this, and he refuses to deal with it, and this is my answer to the questions posed by Attorney Sperling on Facebook. I tell my son, leave the Western sister alone, not because I'm disloyal to black people, but because they're disloyal to normal black men like my son. At the same time, there is a Caucasian MILF-looking woman on YouTube telling other wives to keep their husbands' balls empty and stomachs full. Do you know the pushback she gets from other white women, especially who look anything as good as her? Now imagine she was a young, fit, attractive black woman with a big old rear end and a big old chest and not a big gut to go with it, telling sisters to do the same thing for their black husbands while looking good as her, even if the husbands were really successful. That would be a nasty pushback. And the fact that you don't have sisters looking like that, like I described, without tattoos and not showing off cleavage while saying this, looking at a camera, saying it and putting it on YouTube tells us what we need to know. It tells you that what I'm saying is correct. Now, I'm going to use the example of a porn actress. I remember a porn actress from before I became Muslim, a long time ago. Her name was Minka. Some of you that ain't Muslim probably still know her. You may know who she is. Now, I became Muslim 19 years ago, so I don't know what she's doing now, but see, I didn't just consume porn as a non-Muslim. I would even read the interviews because I still wanted to psychologically dissect women who have any kind of look that men want. Just what does the attention from so many men do to their minds? What do all these options do to their minds? And her favorite actor to work with in the interview, she said her favorite actor to work with was a guy named Woody. And he looked exactly like what young white women who are in shape and in their prime would turn away and curb. He's got that, well, I don't know if he's alive now, but he had that look. I've always believed in separating fantasy from reality as best as possible every time. So when I read the interviews of the actresses that got the most work, she was one of them. And hers was the one I can remember because I was already sick and tired of being told that men can't look at a woman and tell how she's going to act. When I could easily see a relationship between a high bust to gut ratio and a lot of expectations. I could already see that I could see a correlation. So I also noticed that women never didn't want attention from men, and even when they didn't want the men themselves, they still wanted the attention. I noticed that. So when I read her interview to see how she would think differently as a woman from a different culture and nations, she said that she liked Woody and working with him, despite that he looked like what Western women wouldn't want at all. Guess what? She still said something else. She said that she could do whoever she wanted to. She could work with whoever she wants. But if he did someone else, he was out of a job, period. That's what she pretty much said. She said she can be polyamorous, so to speak, but he better be monogamous to her. Now, she did not demand this of any other man. She was working with other actors. I mean, I saw it myself. She worked with other actors. She didn't make these monogamous demands of these other actors. But I know enough about female nature to know that this was odd because, I mean, this is exactly what Western women, especially sisters, wanted to do to men. But by the same token, they can't respect the men who would go along with that. Yet they still don't want men that don't stick it in someone else. See, with Woody's looks, she might have been okay with that. She was dope, but she was with other actors, and these other actors were working with other actresses. She had no issues with them. It was him working with other actresses with which she would have had issues. And what's the reason? Well, even though she liked him, she still saw him as inferior to the other males with whom she worked because other women in the West did not want a man with this look. This is how sisters see black men. And that's the only reason I told you about this interview and what I learned from it. This is exactly how sisters see black men, but they're shocked that we have the options that we have in other women and that we can be with other women who they would think would preclude us because of their own hypergamy. They actually want to continue telling us what they could have said back during the Jim Crow days, that they can lay down with who they want, but if we lay down with anyone else, we're out of a job. And now they're telling us this only pushes us further away and that we are as much men as any other man. You can't tell us that you have all the options and we don't have any but the worst that you're willing to offer. The sisters are actually traumatized by nothing more than us rejecting that bad deal sometimes. There is real trauma. I just said that in the beginning of this. But there is also nothing other than not getting what they want that they consider to be trauma. So stop approaching sisters, gentlemen. Don't do it. And teach these young men not to do it. If the attractive ones won't approach you while you are still young trying to succeed, then don't approach any of them later on because they'll just be traumatized that you approached them before you learned how to fly and became bulletproof. Or they'll be traumatized that they were chasing after the guys they allowed to form the carousel and they couldn't get commitment from them. So they're traumatized from that and they're going to turn around and take it out on you. It's not your job to fix her trauma until it's also her job to fix yours. And they've already said they don't owe you anything and it's not their job to fix your trauma. So in order to do this, get ready to be alone and tell these young brothers that it's okay for them to also be alone, maybe even for life, that it's not their fault. It may not be natural, but let these young brothers know, it may not be natural, but it's not your fault if that's how it turns out. Because if the only options available to you, young brother, are these wicked witches of the West, then being alone and even a lifelong virgin is the safe option. It's the one that's not dangerous. It's better than being disrespected by every woman that is in your life. And one time, the time that you do lose your virginity, well, that has a very high likelihood of being the time that you get falsely accused of something that you didn't do. And you get put behind bars, even if it's only the county jail. You get put behind bars with some dudes that are then going to turn around and they're going to approach you. So if you ain't getting approached by women, you know what? Most men aren't. So don't even take that personally. But understand that it's better to just stay by yourself than it is to wind up in a situation in which there are no women locked up with you and a bunch of men come trying to approach you. The only thing worse than not being approached by women is to be approached by men. And that's what these women are offering you. They're pretty much saying to you, oh, no, we're not going to come for you. We're not checking for you. We won't even admit when we are interested. We're not going to do any of that. And if the minute we feel like it, the minute you cross us, we're going to put you in a situation in which men will approach you and you have to fight them off. That's what they're offering. You all saw that video in which that lady said she only dated felons for that reason. If her heart bleeds, your butt's going to bleed. And she thinks that's funny. That's okay. Getting raped by another dude in captivity is a perfectly fine punishment because her heart is broken. And nobody but some black men have called that out. Shout out to Professor T. Hassan Johnson, because he was the first I heard to say something about that. I think you get the point in the message. Thank you for listening. Black heart, black mind, blackout, assalamu alaikum, and black heterosexual non-select male power just because they don't like it. And black patriarchy until extinction or judgment day.